YouTube, this is Princess Anti-Sheeple Pleaser, and I'm back with another video. Starting now, I'll be starting doing videos every single day. I'm off for winter break, so I'll be doing videos every day this week. Make sure you tune in to the videos. Thank you. Today I'll be doing a video on school to prison pipeline. I have two articles here. One is by thoughtco.com. The other one is by www.csmonitor.com. One talks about how suspensions are based off of racial bias feed, and the first one talks about understanding the school to prison pipeline. So here I go. This is by Nikki Lisa Cole. She's a doctorate. This was made July the 22nd, 2018. The school to prison pipeline is a process through which students are pushed out of school and into prisons. In other words, it is a process of criminalizing youth that is carried out by disciplinary practices within schools that put students into contact with the law enforcement. Once they are put into contact with the law enforcement for disciplinary reasons, many are pushed out of the educational environment into the juvenile and criminal justice systems. The key policies practiced that created and now maintain the school to prison pipeline include zero tolerance policies that mandate harsh punishments for both minors and major infractions, inclusion of students from schools through punitive suspensions and expulsions. The presence of the police on campus as school resource officers, CROs. The school to prison pipeline is supported by the budgetary decisions made by the United States government. From 1987 to 2007, funding for incarceration more than doubled, while funding for higher education was raised by 21%, according to PBS. In addition, evidence shows the school to prison pipeline primarily captures and affects black students, which mirrors over the reputation of this group in America's prisons and jails. How it works. Two key forces that produce now maintain the school to prison pipeline are use of the zero tolerance policies that mandate exclusionary punishments and presence of sorrows on campuses. These policies and practices became common following a deadly spat over school shootings across the United States in the 1990s. Lawmakers and educators believed they would help to ensure safety on school campuses. Having a zero tolerance policy means that a school has zero tolerance for any kind of misbehavior, violation of school rules, no matter how minor or unintentional or subjectively defined it may be. In a school with zero tolerance policy, suspensions, explosions are normal and common ways of dealing with students with misbehavior. Impact of zero tolerance policies. Research shows the implementation of zero tolerance policies has led to a sufficient increase of suspensions and explosions. Citing a study by Michi education scholar Henry Grosset observed that over a 4-year period, suspensions increased by 51%. Sorry, my nose just really stuffed up. Explosions by nearly 32 times after zero tolerance policies were implemented in Chicago schools. They jumped from 21 explosions in 1994 through 95 school year to 668 in 1997 and 1988. Similarly, Gert cites a report from Denver Rocky Mountain News that found explosions increased by more than 300% in the city's public schools between 1993 and 1997. Once suspended or expelled, data shows that students are less likely to complete high school, more than twice as likely to be arrested while on forced leave from school, and more likely to be in contact with the juvenile justice system during the year that follows the leave. In fact, sociologist David Ramey found the national representative that experiencing school punishment before the age of 15 is associated with contact with the criminal justice system for boys. Other research shows students who do not complete high school are more than likely to be incarcerated. House CROs faculty the pipeline. In addition to adopting the harsh zero tolerance policies, most schools across the country now have police present on campus on a daily basis, and most states require educators to report students' misbehavior to the law enforcement. The presence of the CROs on campus means that the students have contact with law enforcement from a young age, though their intended purpose is to protect the students and ensure safety on school campuses. In many instances, the police handling of disciplinary issues escalates to minor, nonviolent infractions into violent criminal incidents that have negative impacts on students. By studying the distribution of the federal funding for the CROs and rates of the school-related arrests, criminologist Emily G. Owens found that the presence of SROs, which stands for School Resource Officers, on campuses cause law enforcement agencies to learn of more crimes and increases the likelihood of an arrest. For those criminal among children under the age of 15, Christopher A. Mallet, a legal scholar, expert on school-to-prison pipeline, concluded after reviewing evidence of the pipeline's existence that the increased use of zero-tolerance policies and police in schools has exponentially increased arrests and referrals to the juvenile courts. Once they have made contact with the criminal justice system, data shows that students are unlikely to graduate high school. This is a long article. Overall, over a decade of empirical research on this topic proves that the zero tolerance policies, punitive disciplinary measures like suspensions and expulsions, the presence of CROs on campus have led to more and more students being pushed out of schools into the juvenile and criminal justice systems. In short, these policies and practices created the school to prison pipeline, substained to it today. But why exactly do these policies and practices make students more likely to commit crimes and end up going to prison? Sociolo- Sociologic theories. Research helped answer this question. One key sociological theory of defiance, known as labeling theory, contends that people come to identify and behave in ways that reflect how others label them. Applying this theory to the school to prison pipeline suggests that labeled as a bad kid by school authorities or SROs, being treated in that way that reflects the label cumulatively ultimately leads kids to internalize the label and behave in the ways that it really will through action. In other words, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sociologist Victor Rios found that just that in his studies of the effects of policy on the lives of the Black and Latino boys in the San Francisco Bay Area. In his first book, Punished, Policing the Lives of Black and Latino Boys, Rios revealed the deaths, interviews, and infographic observation, how increased surveillance and attempts of controlling at-risk or deviant youth ultimately foster very criminal behavior they are intended to prevent. In a social context in which social institutions label deviant youth as bad or criminal, and in doing so strip them of dignity, fail to acknowledge their struggles, do not treat them with respect, rebellion and criminalities are acts of resistance. According to Rios, then it is social institutions, their authorities that do the work of criminalizing the youth. Exclusion from school, socialization and crime. The sociological concept of socialization also helps shed light on why school to prison pipeline exists. After family, school is the second most important formative site of socialization for children and adolescents, where they learn social norms for behavior and interaction, receive moral guidance from authority figures. Removing students from schools as a form of discipline takes them out of a formative environment and important crisis, and it removes them from safety and structure the school provides. Many students who express behavior issues at school are acting out in response to stressful or dangerous conditions in their homes or neighborhoods, so removing them from school and returning them to a problematic, unsupervised home environment hurts rather than helps their development. While removed from the school during suspension or expulsion, youth are more likely to spend time with others removed for similar reasons, with those who are already engaged in criminal activity rather than being socialized by education-focused peers and educators. Students who have been suspended or expelled will be socialized more by peers in similar situations. Because of these factors, The punishment of removal from school creates the conditions for development and criminal behavior. Harsh punishment. Further treating students as criminals when they have done nothing more than act out in minor nonviolent ways weakens the authority of educators, police, and other members of the juvenile and criminal justice systems. The punishment does not fit the crime, so it suggests that those in positions of authority are not trustworthy, fair, or even immoral. Seeking to do the opposite, authority figures who behave this way can actually teach students that they and their authority are not to be respected or trusted, which fosters conflict between I think they mean to put them, they put they and students. This conflict then often leads to exclusionary and damaging punishment experienced by students. The stigma of exclusion. Finally, once excluded from school and labeled bad or criminal, students often find themselves stigmatized by their teachers, parents, parents of friends, and other community members. They experience confusion, stress, depression, and anger as a result of being excluded from the school, from being treated harshly and unfairly by those in charge. This makes it difficult to stay focused on school and hinders motivation to study and desire to return to school and succeed academically. Cumulatively, these social forces work to discourage academic studies, hinder academic achievement, even completion of high school, push negatively labeled youth onto criminal paths, into the criminal justice system. Black and American Indian students face harsher punishments and higher rates of suspension and expulsion. While Black people are just 13% of the total United States population, they comprise the greatest percentage of people in prisons and jails, 40%. Latinos are also overrepresented in the prisons, jails, but far less. While they comprise 16% of the United States population, they represent 19% of those in prison and jails. In contrast, white people make up just 39% of the incarcerated population, despite the fact they are the majority race in the United States, comprising 64% of the national population. Data from across the United States illustrate punishment and school-related arrests show that the racial disparity in incarceration begins in the school-to-prison pipeline. Research shows that both schools with large Black populations and underfunded schools, many of which are majority and minority schools, are more than likely to employ zero tolerance policies nationwide. Black and American Indian students face greater rates of suspension and expulsion than white people do. In addition, data compiled by the National Center for Education Statistics show that while a percentage of white children are suspended fell from 1999 to 2007, the percentage of Black and Hispanic students suspended rose. A variety of studies and metrics show Black and American Indian students are punished more frequently and more harshly for the same and mostly minor offenses than are white students. A legal and educational scholar, Daniel J. Luzin, points that out. Though there is no evidence that these students misbehave more frequently or more severely than white students, research from across the country shows teachers and administrators punish them more, especially black students. Lucin cites one study that found a disparity is the greatest among non-serious offenses like cell phone use, violations of dress code, or subjectively defined offenses like being destructive, displaying affection. Black first-time offenders in these categories are suspended at a rate that are double or more than those white-time first for white first-time offenders. They just should have said Caucasian, because that's confusing. I'm not nowhere black, but okay. It goes on to say black students face higher rates of school-related arrest, removal from school system. It then goes on to talk about racism, and that is from ThoughtPo. Okay, so now I'm gonna go on to the next article. It's by the Christian Science Monitor. This one is called School Suspension. Does racial bias feed the school to prison pipeline? Washington school suspensions may feed the school to prison pipeline and even violate civil rights. Two students set off a fire alarm in the same school district. One of them was an African American kindergartner is suspended for 5 days. The other, white ninth grader, is suspended for 1 day. An African American high schooler is suspended for a day for using a cell phone and an iPod in class. And the same day, a white student with a similar disciplinary history gets detention for using headphones. Two middle schoolers push each other. The white student receives 3 days in suspension, while the Native American student arrested and suspended out of school for 10 days. Civil rights groups have been saying for years that school discipline is not meted out fairly, citing examples like these reported last year from around the country by U.S. Department of Education. High rates of suspension and explosions for certain groups, particularly African Americans, Hispanics, and those with disabilities, are evident in data gathered nationally by the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. Data from 72,000 American public schools in the 2009 through 10 school year, for example, showed while African Americans make up 18% of the students in this large sample, they account for 46% of the students suspended more than once, 39% of the students expelled, 36% of the students arrested on campus. White students, by contrast, represent 29% of the multiple suspensions and 33% of the expulsions, but 51% of the students. School leaders have to maintain a safe environment for learning, and about 4 in 10 teachers and administrators surveyed recently by Education Week said out of school suspensions and expulsions are an effective way to do that. Some expulsions have been mandated by law, particularly when a student brings a gun to school. Yet increasingly, we are seeing suspensions for things you used to be considered typical adolescent behavior were dealt with in less harsh ways within school systems, says Jim Incher, managing director of programs of Advancement Project and National Civil Rights Group in Washington. While options differ whether students' behavior has become more destructive or dangerous, the number of suspensions has grown dramatically during recent decades. In 1976, nearly 1.8 million students were suspended, 4% of all public school students. By 2006, the number of students suspended had nearly doubled to 3.3 million, about 7% of all students, according to the Department of Education data. In addition to the suspensions, 102 students were expelled and removed from school for the remainder of the year, or longer, in 2006. Nearly 2 decades of zero tolerance mentality has contributed dramatically to spike in exclusionary discipline that involves racial disparities. Youth and civil rights advocates say it has led to what they call a school-to-prison pipeline. The implications of this unfair disciplinary system are enormous, they say. National goals to prepare more students for college and careers can't be met if so many students continue to miss out on school. Growing number of educators and lawmakers add, and society will pay down the road for more jobless, incarcerated young people. A microcosm of the problem was captured in a groundbreaking 2011 Texas study that tracked more than 1 million students for 6 years. Breaking school rules by Council State Government Justice System in New York found that nearly 6 in 10 students in Texas were suspended or expelled at least once between grades 7 and 12, but the removals were mandated by law in only 3% of those cases. 31% of the students suspended or expelled more than once for discretionary reasons, repeated a grade twice, and the rate of similar students not suspended or expelled of the 15% of students suspended or expelled 11 or more times. Only 4 in 10 graduated within one of the 3 years of the expected graduation date. Precious Brazil, for one, doesn't think that her suspension was fair, and she offers an example of how suspensions may not resolve problems between students and authority figures. An African American 10th grader at Castlemont High School in Oakland, California, acknowledges it was against the rules to have her kick scooters on campus, but she says the principal saw her with it and told her it was okay as long as she didn't ride it. Soon, she got into an argument with the security guard over the scooter. The guard tried to take it away. It hit her in the knee, and she got upset. The security guard also accused Precious of cursing her out. After administrators heard both sides, they sent Precious home for 2 days. She says it didn't cause her to think that she needed to change her behavior in the future. but rather it made me disrespect the security guard more because she was rude to me. Discipline and civil rights violation. In the past 4 years, OCR has received more than 1,250,000 complaints of civil rights violations involving school discipline. It has also launched 20 compliance reviews, board-scale investigations on school systems to prove significant racial disparities in discipline rates. 3 of those have resulted in voluntary plans to reduce suspensions overall, disproportionately high discipline rates for certain groups, most notably a landmark effort in California's Oakland Unified School District. Skeptics of OCR focus on racial data, say it could have unintended consequences. This article goes on to talk about Israel policies and the shootings that has been going on. And it goes on to talk about Chicago. My opinion on it, not everybody that gets suspended multiple times actually goes and does criminal activities or goes to juvenile hall, because I've been suspended multiple times, like multiple, but they were like when I was younger. I haven't gotten suspended since like the 8th grade was the last time I ever got suspended. Yeah, it was the last time I ever had gotten suspended. High school, it mellowed out. I joined the ROTC, and I haven't had any problems. But we do get suspended a lot more for some things. But it is some kids out there that just need not to be in school. They get suspended for what they do. But I don't think we should get suspended for like simple things. Like I can have my phone out in the middle of class. Oh, you're suspended for like one whole day, and you see a white person with their phone, and oh, it's okay. Just have detention, Bobby, and I don't think it's fair. It's not equal. It's never been equal. If we're not even equal with Caucasian people as a race, women should be equal to get the same disciplinary action. That would never happen. If that happened, that would be a miracle. But the way the school system works and the way America works, that will never happen in life. That was my 2 cents on it. I also think it depends on how you were raised, because even though I was suspended, I'm not out here doing criminal activity or anything like that. I'm a housewife. It depends on how you're being raised, not just the school. It depends on how you're being raised. Also, that's my opinion on the school, the pipeline. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. My voice is like drained right now. The market was for a dumb one. But I hope you enjoy your days. Christmas just passed. Hope everybody had a good holiday, good Christmas Eve, a good Christmas yesterday. Hope everybody got gifts and didn't get any coals in their boxes. If you still believe in Santa Claus, that's Gucci. Bye, YouTube. I hope you have a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.